Hi there, welcome to Transcona Trailer Sales. Today I'm going to be walking you through your 2018 Winnebago Outlook. We are just going to be starting off at the back of the unit. You got your ladders so you can get up to your roof and check all your seals periodically. You got a 2-inch receiver down below with some 7-pin wiring. Just keep in mind there's going to be some weight restrictions when it comes to that. And then coming around on either side of the unit, you can pull in the bumper cap. The bumper cap pulls right off. Typically, that's going to be where you're going to want to store your sewer hose after your first use. We currently have a brand new one located inside one of your compartments, so that's why it's not in there yet. But this is where you be wanting to store it. That way you just keep as much smell out of the unit as possible. Opening up this compartment here, you got a tire iron in case you need to change any tires, and it's just a storage compartment. And then if you go right down from there, you're gonna have your gray valve and your black valve. You're always gonna wanna empty your black valve first. This could be your dirtiest water filled from your toilets, and then you can come behind that with your gray valve, which can be typically cleaner water filled from your sinks and your showers. You got the sewer hose here. Once you loosen that off, the sewer cap, your sewer hose will have the same connection. Inside here, so you're gonna have your standard 30 amp cord. Most campsites should have this, you can plug right on in, but let's say you have the unit at home and you want to run your fridge, or your campsite only has 15 amp service, which is your standard household outlet. We do include that adapter. Just keep in mind, whenever you are using that adapter, you're not going to be able to run your air conditioner. Realistically, is just to run your fridge and your lights. And then once you plug everything in, you can open up that little slot there. That way you're not going to get any critters climbing in there at night. Inside here is going to be just some storage space. That's where you're going to find your standard starter kit. It's going to come with a 10-foot sewer hose, a 15-foot water hose, and some other miscellaneous goodies, including that 15 amp park adapter, which I've already told you about. Inside here, flipping this guy open, that's going to be where your propane system is. Really, the only thing you need to worry about here is this valve here. Counterclockwise, nice and slowly, and all the way to open up the flow of propane to the unit. You got your city water connection, so if you're at a site with service, you thread a garden hose in there, turn it on. It's going to pressurize all those lines without the need to run your water pump. And then inside this compartment here, if you pop that guy open, it's just going to be a service port for your generator. Around the front, you get your standard Ford chassis. Then you got your main entryway door. Then you got your fresh water filter right next to it. So if you're out boondocking or you're going to be traveling for a while and you want to carry some water on board, this is going to be how you do so, and that's what your water pump draws off of. Sticking your garden hose in there, turn it on. And that's what fills up your fresh tank. Right down below, you do have another storage compartment. Right here, you're gonna have the service port for your hot water heater. Popping that guy open. Whenever you first get to your campsite, you're gonna give that guy a pull. There should be a shot of water coming out of there, letting you know that the tank's full. It's safe to fire up. I'm gonna go over a reset procedure once we get inside. The button I'm gonna refer to is just right here. Then you got an 1 1/8" drain bolt right down there at the bottom. That also is an anode rod, so it's gonna be to help with hard water. It eventually wears out, so it's something you're gonna want to keep an eye on. Whenever your furnace is running, this is gonna be blowing out hot air, so be mindful of that. Some more storage down below here. So now for the best part, to take a step on inside, you're just gonna open up that handle. Door is gonna open up. Underneath these stairs here, you're undoing that latch. That is gonna be where you're gonna keep your house batteries. On this wall here, you're gonna turn on the main living space lights. And then you do have some other controls. You got your battery disconnect switch with it in the on position. The batteries are connected to the unit. If you were to hit the off, that does disconnect the batteries from the unit. You got your awning in and out button. Whenever you do put your awning out, you're always going to want to keep an eye on the wind speeds. Once they start picking up, you're going to want to make sure you bring it in, but rolling it out is as simple as hitting the out button. The awning starts rolling its way out. You're going to know it's at its full extension. When you see the back of the metal tube and the little flap hang down, sometimes the flap can get stuck, so you might just have to retract it a couple feet, try putting it back out again for it to come hang down. Now if we were to start running, you can take any arm, front or rear. Push in on your 2 metal tabs here, and you can change your pitch to your awning head so the water can then run off. Now if you like the angle better because it's going to allow for more shade underneath with it pitched all the way down, You do the same thing with the front arm. It's going to allow for more shade underneath, like I said, but just making sure you do have them both on the same holes when you go to bring them in. That way you don't run the risk of bending anything. And to bring it in, as simple as holding the in button, the awning is going to start rolling its way in, and once the arms contact the side of the trailer, the motor is going to automatically cut out. So is it a good idea if you ever have to roll it up while it's wet? Make sure at your next earliest convenience that you do roll it back out so you allow it time to dry off so you don't accelerate the growth of mold or mildew. You do have an awning LED as well. It turns on with the flick of a switch. Now taking a step on inside, you're going to have tons of accent lighting throughout this unit. Now it's all going to be on its own their own center push buttons, and you kind of find it as you use the unit. And then for all the storage that you do have throughout this unit, which is tons, you're going to want to make sure you're careful of drains, water lines, and wiring. You're not going to be wanting to affect any of that, as it is not good. At the front here, you do have a bunk space, just so you have a more open field while you're driving. You remove this one bunk panel here, so you have more headroom, but you can just pull it down into place. It plops in like so, and then you got your hook so you can get your ladder set up, so you can climb up into the unit nice into the bunk nice and easily. Up front, you get your standard Ford chassis. A couple things to go over though. If you have your key in your ignition, your awning isn't going to go out or in, just as an added safety feature to prevent you from opening it or closing it while driving. But with that being said, you do have to have the key in the ignition, in the accessory position, and you have to have the parking brake on for you to get your slide out to operate. We're going to do that first. We'll just go to the back here. Slide out switch is right up there near the on the wall. Now, before you ever run your slide out in or out, always being mindful of what's on either side of the slide, inside and out. That goes for the outside and the inside. Reason I'm saying inside is because sometimes things do tend to shift during travel. You're gonna want to just make sure that you're running it out nice and even. Pushing the out button, slide is gonna start making its way out. Once it does reach its full extension, you're gonna hear the motors wind up and cut out. So now your bedroom slide is fully out. So you can just take that bed, flip it down, and you're fully set up. So I'm going to go back to the front of the unit so we can kill the stereo just so we don't get demonetized. Take the key out of the ignition so we don't kill your battery. Now into this space here, you got your you have your thermostat on your wall. Now it's going to fire up your air conditioner or your furnace, whichever you decide. You have a couple different options for the fan. I always recommend leaving it on auto, so it's an on-demand system, and it does have to be in auto for the furnace to work properly. If you turn the furnace on and it's in on, and the fan setting is on either high or low, your air conditioner fan's also going to kick in as well as the furnace fan, which might not help you. So I always recommend leaving it on auto. And if you leave it in auto when you're in air conditioning, if you have the room set to 60 and it's currently 70, once the room reaches 60, it'll automatically kill the air conditioner instead of leaving it running full time. And then you got your different mode setting. All the way to the left is cool. One to the left is fan. So that's just moving air around with the air conditioner, no heating or cooling involved. And then all the way to the right is going to be your furnace. Now that's going to fire up on propane, and that's going to move all its air through the floor portals we have throughout the unit. We're going to have to go over a purging procedure that you're always going to want to make sure you do before you try and fire your furnace, which I'll go over once we get to the stove. And then, of course, because this unit's equipped with propane, it's your LP detector right here near the ground. If that guy ever starts going off, just turn off the main supply of propane, open up some windows and vents to get some fresh oxygen inside of here. Now, all the blinds in this unit are going to work the same way. They just kind of sit where you leave them. Pull them up to retract them up. In your kitchen area, tons of storage again. You got your kitchen sink with hot and cold water. And then you come to your stove. So it did say that we were going to go over some purging procedures. So the reason I tell you to come purge through your stove, as you control the gas valve and how many times it lights itself. If you try to fire up your water heater or your furnace before you purge the system, because you turn off your propane system, air is allowed in. Once air makes its way in, it does have to be purged out. Doing it by the stove is just the simplest way, because either one of those other things are going to throw a fault code at you if they don't sense a flame after a few tries. Now, always being safe whenever you're doing so, of course, though, turning over to the high/light option, hitting the igniter. Of course, it fired up pretty quickly today just because I had the system running earlier. Typically, it can take a few minutes, so just have to be patient with it. And of course, whenever you have the gas valve on, you're going to want to make sure you're consistently hitting that sparker every few seconds. That way you don't get a buildup of gas and minor combustion. And of course, if you had your face nearby, you're probably going to lose some eyebrows and eyelashes. We want to keep that not happening, so just be safe whenever you are using it. And sometimes it can take a few minutes, but eventually it will light. No problem. Microwave just up top, just like home. Not much I'm going to show you there. Up on the wall here, you got your main monitor panel system. Pushing the button, it's going to tell you the corresponding tank level. You got your water heater button, turning that on. Water heater is going to try lighting itself 3 times. Hopefully you've purged the system like I've said already. Once the water heater lights, this light's going to come off. Now if that water heater lights 3 times and if it doesn't light, this DSI fault light's going to stay on. At that point, you do just have to turn this button off. Go hit that reset button I showed you earlier and then try turning it back on, because again, it could just be a purging issue. Water pump switch, that draws out of your fresh tank. And then you do have your generator start-stop switch. Pretty self-explanatory. Hold down on the stop button before you try to fire it. That's just priming the carburetor with fuel. Once you've held that down for about 10 seconds, you can hit up on start and the generator automatically fires right on up. Now just keep in mind, this generator does run off gasoline. It runs through your bus or your chassis fuel tank. Now typically most people are just filling up their fuel tanks with 87 octane, because you'd be crazy to fill something like this with 91. These small engines don't exactly like that, but as long as you throw a little bit of fuel stabilizer in with every tank, or you try and run that generator at least once or twice a month just to keep things flowing through and keep things loose and moving, you shouldn't have a problem. But again, it is something to keep in mind. You have a small engine, you're going to want to run it every once in a while just to keep things flowing, stop things from gumming up. Solar controller right down below. There's a bunch of different settings you can go in and play with. I'm going to recommend looking up the owner's manual to get setting up with any of those, but we do currently have it set up for your basic charging needs. So if there's a sun hitting the panel up top, it's going to be applying a charge to your battery. Now, of course, another reason that ladder comes into handy is because you're going to have to clean that panel off periodically. Whenever you are cleaning it, I'm just going to recommend using a soft microfiber towel with some warm water. Don't be trying to use no crazy chemicals on it. Otherwise, you do run the risk of wrecking the finish, and that could cause you some money, so we don't want to do that. Inverter control right up top here. Push the button, hold it, you're going to hear the beep, turns itself on. That's converting your 12-volt power to 110 power. Of course, that's only going to last as long as your batteries do, so just keep that in mind. But you have the generator for when you do need to run. Microwave, again, just like home, not much I'm going to show you there. These ceiling things, you can open and close them as you desire to move more air one place or another. And then you got your fridge, which is pretty self-explanatory. Fridge, freezer combo. The controls for both are just right here. 7 is going to be the coldest option. It's also going to be the option you want to leave it on to get the fridge the coldest the fastest. And then just turning it off to turn it off. Your furnace output is just right there. It's going to move all its air through there. So if you want to get a little fan to move air around a little bit, it'd probably be a great idea to do so. Light switch for the bedroom just on the wall. Again, tons of storage space all throughout here. Opening up the bathroom, you get access into the bathroom. Light switches on the left. Hot and cold water all throughout. Other than that, it's a pretty standard bathroom. And then you come into your bedroom. Again, it's going to be pretty standard. You got a couple plugins here. There is going to be a TV backer right here for that, in case you want to mount a TV in the bedroom. 2 plugs, coax outlet. Just keep in mind, you're going to have to find the stud, but there will be a stud in this wall somewhere for it. And then last but not least, the back wall here, you got your fire exit, pretty standard. Pull in the tabs, push on the window. That window is going to then pop open and allow you to hop on out. Now, of course, if you're hopping out, you're going to want to try and go feet first, but if there is a fire, you're going to want to get out as quick as possible. So just keep that in mind. Now the one last thing I'm looking for is just right here. You got your main fuse and breaker panel right below the bed. If you ever have a breaker trip, it's going to sit in the middle, so you just have to turn it off and then back on again to reset it, and you have all your corresponding fuses on the right. Probably be a good idea to pick up a few extra fuses in case one were to blow for whatever weird reason. Now that is it for this unit here. If you have any other questions, feel free to give us a call.